I met Emily 10 years ago in the most unexpected place, our local public library. It was a rainy Sunday afternoon, and I was wandering the aisles, half looking for a book, half killing time. I wasn't in a hurry, just enjoying the quiet. She was sitting on the floor in the fiction section, legs crossed, flipping through a hardcover like she'd forgotten the world around her. I couldn't help but notice her. Something about the way she looked so at ease, so completely in her element. I ended up picking a book I didn't need just so I'd have an excuse to hang around. We started talking when I asked if the book she was reading was any good. Turned out, she'd read it 3 times. We joked about how neither of us could ever stick to a reading list, and we ended up grabbing coffee that same afternoon. That coffee turned into dinner, then late-night texts, weekend walks, movies, slow dances in her apartment. You know, the kind of beginning that feels too easy, like it's falling into place on its own? That's what it was like with her. She worked in marketing, full of ideas and energy. I work in logistics, processes, schedules, making things run smoothly. Where I brought order, she brought color. We just balanced each other. Not in a perfect, poetic way, but in a real way. I didn't have to be anything other than myself around her, and I think she felt the same. We got married about a year after we met. Nothing extravagant, just close family, a backyard, and a lot of laughter. We bought a house on a quiet street not long after that. It's a cozy place, 3 bedrooms, a little garden out back, and this creaky old staircase that we've never gotten around to fixing. It's home. These days, we have a pretty simple routine. I'm usually up early, out the door by 7. Emily's more of a slow morning kind of person, always with her tea and a podcast playing while she gets ready. Evenings are our time. We cook together most nights, even if it's just something quick. Weekends are for brunch, errands, or just laying low with a movie or a new recipe we're trying out. We've got 2 dogs, Murphy and Bean, rescues, both of them spoiled rotten. We don't have kids, and though we talked about it off and on over the years, we ended up filling our lives with other things. Traveling when we can, game nights with friends, Sunday morning drives to nowhere in particular. If you asked me what our life looked like from the outside, I'd say it was good. Simple. Steady. The kind of life we always talked about building, nothing flashy, but full of small comforts and shared moments. We knew each other's quirks by heart. We had our inside jokes, our favorite takeout place, our song that always made us dance in the kitchen. There was this quiet confidence I carried, knowing we had each other's backs. That no matter what the world threw at us, we'd be in it together. That's where our story begins. If the early days of our relationship felt like a whirlwind, the years that followed were more like a quiet, steady rhythm, something we grew into without even realizing it. We didn't have grand gestures all the time, but there was a kind of intimacy in the small things, the dailiness of our life together. Emily had this habit of humming when she cooked. Not singing, just humming, like a low melody she didn't even notice she was doing. It became this background soundtrack to our evenings. I'd usually be at the kitchen counter finishing up work on my laptop while she chopped vegetables or stirred something on the stove. It wasn't that I couldn't cook. I could, but she liked to take the lead, and I was happy to be her sous chef. We shared a lot of quiet moments like that. No pressure to fill the space with words. Just being in the same room, doing our own thing, but together. That's something I always appreciated about us. We never felt the need to perform our relationship. It was just there, settled and understood. Our home reflected that too. It wasn't picture perfect or curated for Instagram. It was lived in. Her touch was everywhere, plants in every window, mismatched mugs she'd collected from our trips, a stack of books on every flat surface. My contribution? A garage full of tools and a TV that was definitely too big for the living room. We spent most of our weekends in a kind of pleasant blur. Saturday mornings, she'd sleep in while I took the dogs to the park. Sunday evenings were for board games or watching old movies, stuff we'd seen a dozen times, but still laughed at. Sometimes we go out to dinner. Sometimes we just pick up takeout and eat on the couch. Nothing extravagant, but enough. We made time for vacations, too. Every year, we'd pick one place neither of us had been. Nothing too exotic, usually a road trip or a cabin up north. Emily had a soft spot for lakeside towns, and I loved the quiet of the woods. Those little getaways became our tradition. We'd unplug, sleep in, explore, and come back feeling like we'd hit reset. I think one of my favorite things about her was how she made ordinary moments feel important. Like she really paid attention to birthdays, to anniversaries, to the way I took my coffee. I never had to ask for those things. She just knew. And in return, I tried to do the same. I never missed a birthday. I always made sure her favorite wine was in the fridge. When she had a stressful week, I'd leave little notes in her bag or send her memes I knew would make her laugh. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. A life built slowly and deliberately, piece by piece. And if I'm being honest, I thought we were exactly where we were supposed to be. If I had to sum up our marriage in one word, I'd probably say comfortable, but not in a boring way. It was the kind of comfort that comes from familiarity, from being seen and understood and accepted for exactly who you are. I think that's what we both valued most. It was never about impressing each other. It was about being real. I used to joke that Emily and I had our own language. It wasn't anything we invented on purpose, just a shorthand built over the years. A glance across a room, a small shrug, an inside joke that no one else would catch. There were things we didn't even need to say because we just knew. That kind of bond takes time, and we'd earned it. She was always the more social one between us. She thrived in group settings, dinners, work events, birthdays. She had this natural charisma, not loud, but magnetic in a subtle way. People gravitated toward her. And I liked that about her, honestly. I liked watching her work a room, like the way she'd glance back at me from across a table like she was checking to make sure I was still there. Me? I'm a little more low-key. I enjoy a good night with friends, sure, but I'm just as content sitting on the porch with a cold drink and the sound of cicadas in the background. Emily never made me feel like that was something I needed to change. We met in the middle. She'd pull me out of my shell when I needed it, and I'd help her slow down when things got too busy. We didn't fight much, not really. Disagreements happened, but they didn't last. She had a quick temper, but she cooled off just as fast. I was usually the one to stay quiet, let things settle, then circle back when we were both calmer. It worked for us. Or at least I thought it did. People around us would sometimes comment on how in sync we were. Friends would say they envied our teamwork, how we made things look easy. But I never thought of it as a performance. We weren't trying to be anything other than what we were. We had fun together. We teased each other. We still flirted. We still had those moments, late at night in the dark, when one of us would whisper something random and the other would laugh half asleep. We had plans too, big and small. A remodel on the kitchen next spring. A trip to Oregon in the fall. Maybe a dog-friendly RV down the road and some travel after retirement. Even though we didn't have kids, we talked sometimes about fostering, maybe not now, but someday. We had a future. At least, I thought we did. And up until very recently, I never had a reason to think otherwise. I think the strangest part about suspicion is how quietly it arrives. There's no siren, no red flag waving in your face. Just a subtle itch in the back of your mind, a whisper you don't want to acknowledge. It started small. Little things. Changes in routine that I initially chalked up to normal life. Emily began working late more often. Not constantly, but enough that I noticed. She said her department had picked up 2 new clients, and that things were a mess internally. It's just for a few weeks, she told me, sliding her laptop shut with a tired sigh. Things should calm down soon. I believed her. Of course I did. I had no reason not to. But then there were other things. The way she started guarding her phone a little more closely. Before, she'd leave it out on the kitchen counter or plugged in beside mine on the nightstand. Now it was always face down, or in her back pocket, or suddenly out of battery. She'd always been someone who shared freely pictures, texts, random things from group chats. Lately, she'd just say work stuff, or give a vague shrug. Nothing major, but different. And I started to notice how quickly she deflected certain questions. Like when I asked if she wanted to come to a friend's birthday dinner on Friday night, and she said, "I'll try, but I might be stuck late again. You should go without me." No big deal on its own. But we hadn't had a night out together in weeks. And the way she said it, almost rehearsed, just sat wrong with me. I tell myself not to be ridiculous. Everyone's allowed to be tired, busy, distracted. But the unease kept growing. One night, I made a comment, half joking, half curious, about how much time she was spending at the office lately. She didn't laugh like she usually would. Instead, she looked up from her salad and said, "Do you not trust me or something?" Her tone was light, but the edge was there. I tried to smooth it over. "No, I didn't mean anything by it. Just miss seeing you around. That's all." She nodded, smiled, but I couldn't shake how fast she'd gone on the defensive. A few days later, I noticed something odd. I was doing laundry, her load, because I always did hers when she was running late, and I found a receipt in her jacket pocket. A cafe downtown. Mid-afternoon. 2 drinks. That wouldn't be strange. except that she'd told me she'd skipped lunch that day because she was slammed with meetings. Again, it was small, almost nothing. But when things start feeling off, every little inconsistency feels heavier. I didn't bring it up. Not yet. I wasn't even sure what I was accusing her of. Was it really cheating? Or was I just being paranoid? I wasn't ready to answer that question. But for the first time in years, I found myself watching her, really watching her, and wondering if the woman sitting across from me at the dinner table was hiding something. You ever find yourself in a moment, just staring at someone you love and realizing you don't recognize them? Not physically, not obviously, but in some intangible way, like something inside them has turned ever so slightly, and now you're staring at a version of them you don't quite know? That's how I started feeling around Emily. The changes kept coming in quiet waves. They were never enough to sound any alarms by themselves, but together, they built something I couldn't ignore. She started dressing up more. That alone didn't bother me. Emily's always had a sense of style, but it was different now. More curated. Heels on a Tuesday, lipstick for a client call. She'd smile in the mirror like she was looking at someone else's reflection. When I asked who she was meeting one night after work, she hesitated, just for a second. Then she said it was a new client, a late onboarding meeting, nothing exciting. But she didn't offer the name, and I didn't push. I wish I had. There was a night, Thursday, I think, when she came home around 10:30. I was half asleep on the couch, TV still on. She walked in, smelled faintly of perfume and something sweet, not her usual scent. "You waited up for me?" she asked, hanging her coat like it was just any other day. "Yeah," I said. "Just wanted to make sure you got home safe." She kissed me on the forehead. Not the lips, not even the cheek. The forehead, like a sister or a stranger. That night, she showered immediately, didn't talk much, climbed into bed and rolled away from me. That's when something shifted in me. Not all at once, but enough. I started paying attention. Not snooping, not digging, not yet. Just noticing. She laughed a little more at her texts. Always smiled down at her phone when I walked into the room, then flipped the screen over. Her lock screen used to be a photo of us at the lake. It's just a black background now. When I asked, she said she was trying to be more minimalist. Then there was the gym thing. Emily's always been into fitness, and she recently started going to a new boutique studio across town. One Saturday morning, I offered to drop her off on my way to grab some lumber for a project in the garage. She hesitated, again, that tiny pause, and said, "You don't have to. I like the drive." But I went anyway. Dropped her off. Watched her walk inside. 5 minutes later, I pulled around the back of the parking lot and waited, engine off. I wasn't even sure why. Just a hunch, a tightening in my chest. I didn't see anything. Not that day. But I also didn't see her come back out when her class was over. I circled the lot. Her car was gone. She texted me an hour later. "Heading to Target. Do we need anything?" I stared at the message like it was written in a different language. She hadn't mentioned that plan earlier. And something about it, the way she was trying to be casual, even helpful, felt scripted. That night, she was extra affectionate. Not a lot. Just enough to throw me off. Made dinner. Put on my favorite playlist while we ate. Asked how my day was. It felt like a reset button she was trying to hit. As if sensing I was pulling back, and she needed to pull me close again. I didn't say anything. I still don't know anything for sure. But every day, I feel like I'm standing at the edge of something I don't want to see. And it's getting harder to look away. I've always been someone who trusts slowly, but once that trust is there, I hold on to it like a foundation stone. With Emily, that trust was never questioned, never shaken, until recently. And now I feel like I'm walking around our house with a spotlight, casting it on moments I used to overlook, searching for cracks in the walls I didn't know I should be checking. Last week, she went out for drinks with some coworkers after a late meeting. I told her to enjoy herself, even meant it when I said it. But around 10 p.m., I noticed something odd. Her location wasn't updating on our shared map app. Not frozen. Not turned off. Just missing. I clicked on it a few more times like an idiot, like that would somehow make it reappear. Nothing. When she came home 2 hours later, she was a little too cheerful. Not drunk, just polished. Like someone who'd rehearsed being normal. She walked in, said she had a blast, told me a story about one of her coworkers doing karaoke, and how she almost joined in. I asked, "Where'd you guys go?" And she rattled off a bar I know well. I wanted to ask, was it just coworkers? Was there someone else? But I didn't. I nodded, smiled, played my part. The next day, I looked up the bar's Instagram page. They post stories often, crowd shots, drink specials, dumb boomerangs of clinking glasses. That night? Nothing. Not a single photo. And Emily, who usually takes selfies or stories when she's out, didn't post anything either. Her page has been quiet lately. Suspiciously curated. I know how this sounds. I know how I sound. I'm not proud of it. I feel like I'm becoming someone else, someone I don't recognize. Second-guessing everything, doubting her, doubting myself. But the distance between us is no longer just emotional. It's physical. She flinches a little when I reach for her hand. We haven't been intimate in over a month. The last time we were, she seemed distracted. Like she was mentally somewhere else entirely. When I brought it up gently, just asked if she was okay, if she was feeling off, she sighed and said, "I'm just tired lately. Work's draining." She looked at me like I was putting pressure on her. Like I was asking for something unreasonable. I apologized. Of course I did. We've always had seasons in our relationship. Busy times. Quiet times. But this doesn't feel like a season. It feels like a wall. I catch myself studying her face when she talks. Not because I'm interested, but because I'm trying to find a tell. Something in her expression. A slip-up. A pause that lasts too long. I hate that I'm doing that. I hate that this is who I am right now. I haven't talked to anyone about this. Not a friend, not my brother, no one. What would I even say? That I think my wife is cheating on me, but I have no proof? That the woman I used to share everything with now feels like a locked room I'm not allowed to enter? I don't want to become obsessed. But the signs are piling up like static in my chest. I can't sleep. I can't concentrate at work. Every time she texts me now, I look for subtext instead of just reading the words. She asked me the other night if I was okay. I said yes. I lied. Because I'm not okay. I'm waiting for a truth I hope never comes, and dreading that it already has. It was my brother's birthday. The kind of family gathering we always showed up for, whether we wanted to or not. Emily used to enjoy these things, or at least she pretended to. She'd make desserts from scratch, gossip with my cousins, help my mom in the kitchen like she belonged there. But this time, she didn't bring anything. No homemade tart, no smile, just that same distant version of herself I've been seeing more and more often lately. I almost didn't go. I was tired of pretending everything was fine, tired of carrying this weight of suspicion that had been eating away at me for weeks. But Emily insisted we go together. "It'll be good for us," she said with a soft touch on my shoulder. "You've been so quiet lately." The irony wasn't lost on me. I was quiet. She was the one slipping away, one late night at a time. We got there around 6. My parents' house was full, the way it always is during family get-togethers. Laughter echoed from the kitchen, kids ran wild through the hallways, and the smell of roasted chicken filled the air. For a few moments, I let myself relax into the chaos. Familiar faces, familiar voices. I needed that. Emily disappeared into the back of the house about 30 minutes in. Said she was going to find your mom. I figured they were catching up, maybe in the kitchen or the sunroom. I stayed in the living room, listening to my brother rant about the state of the economy and pretending to care about football. But I couldn't stop thinking about her. About what she was doing. Who she might be messaging. I got up to get a drink, more out of restlessness than thirst. The hallway was narrow, and as I passed the door to the guest bedroom, barely ajar, I heard something that stopped me cold. Emily's voice. Muffled, but clear enough. "He just doesn't excite me anymore. It's like I'm living with a roommate. A dull, predictable one." I froze. My heart didn't just sink, it bottomed out. Then came my mother's voice. Calm. Even. "I know, sweetheart. I've seen it. He's always been steady. But steady can become stagnant, and you need more than that. You're still young." I didn't move. I couldn't. Emily laughed, and said, "I tried to be patient. I thought maybe he'd snap out of it. Maybe the spark would come back. But I've been with Aiden for 6 months now. And the difference, it's night and day. I feel alive again. Desired. Aiden. There it was. A name. My mother didn't react with shock. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't tell her to stop. Instead, she sighed like someone making peace with something inevitable. Well, then maybe it's time you stop living 2 lives. You're not doing yourself, or him, any favors. You can't keep being his wife if your heart's somewhere else. Maybe it's time you go live with the man who actually makes you happy. I stepped back, just enough that the floor didn't creak. I stared at the hallway wall, that same old framed picture of our family from Christmas 4 years ago, and I couldn't stop the tremor in my hands. 6 months. My wife had been cheating on me for 6 months. And my mother, my own mother, knew. Not only knew, but supported it. Encouraged it. I didn't walk back into that room. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I stood there long enough for the hallway to grow quiet again, then slipped outside through the back door without saying a word to anyone. The night air hit me like a slap. I felt sick, dizzy, like I'd just been pushed underwater. My phone buzzed in my pocket, some stupid group text about cake. I ignored it. I walked to my car like a ghost, got in, and gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. It was done. No more wondering. No more piecing together clues or questioning my own sanity. The truth had come, clear and brutal, from the two voices I trusted most in the world. And they didn't even know I was listening. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I drove around for hours, aimless, hollow, the sound of Emily's voice looping in my head. He just doesn't excite me anymore. I feel alive again. Go live with the man who makes you happy. And my mother, calm as ever, telling her to leave me for him. I kept wondering if maybe I misheard. Maybe I misunderstood. But I didn't. That voice wasn't confused. It wasn't conflicted. It was sure. It was done with me. Around 4 a.m., I pulled into a gas station parking lot and just sat there. I could feel something inside me boiling, a slow pressure building behind my ribs. Grief, anger, disbelief, they all swirled together into something sharp, something I couldn't keep inside anymore. By the time I drove back to the house, the sky was just starting to lighten. Birds chirping, streets still empty. It felt cruel, how normal the world looked. Emily's car was parked in the driveway. I didn't walk inside. I went straight to the garage, grabbed my tool bag, and started changing the locks. Every turn of the screwdriver felt like fuel being poured on a fire. I was done being quiet, done being patient, done waiting for someone else to do the right thing. Her things were already on my mind before I even finished with the last bolt. I walked through the house like I was flipping a switch, drawer by drawer, closet by closet. I pulled her clothes, her makeup, her shoes. I didn't throw them. I didn't scream. I packed them neatly into bags and boxes, stacked them just outside the front door. I even taped the boxes shut. Don't ask me why. I guess part of me still wanted to keep my dignity intact. When I was finished, I locked the front door and sat on the couch, just waiting. She showed up a little after 9. I saw her step out of the car, pause when she saw the boxes, then reach for the doorknob. She jiggled it once, twice. Then she knocked. I didn't answer. She knocked again, louder. Babe. Her voice was confused, still groggy from sleep. What's going on? I stood in the hallway, just out of her line of sight through the window. I wanted to see her face. I wanted her to feel the coldness that had been living inside me since last night. She pounded harder now. Why is the door locked? Did something happen? I stepped forward and pulled back the curtain. Our eyes met through the glass. Her smile was small, unsure. She tilted her head like she was trying to read me. I didn't say a word. She mouthed, "Open the door." I shook my head once, slowly, and pointed to the boxes. Her smile dropped. She blinked, confused, and then said, "What is this? What are you doing?" I cracked the window just enough for my voice to carry. "You can go live with Aiden now." Her face went pale. She didn't move. For a few seconds, she just stared at me like I'd slapped her. "You," she stammered. "What are you talking about?" I leaned in, calm but deliberate. "I heard you. At the party. You and my mother. Talking about how exciting he is. How you feel alive with him. How I'm just some dull placeholder." Her jaw dropped. "Wait, you were listening." I laughed bitterly. Not on purpose, but I guess I heard what I was meant to hear. She looked down at the boxes, then back at me. "Please, let's talk about this. It's not what you think." I tilted my head. "Oh no? Which part? The cheating, or the lying? Or my mother encouraging you to leave me for someone you've been sleeping with behind my back for 6 months?" She froze, and that was all the confirmation I needed. "I didn't want it to happen this way," she said quietly. "You mean you didn't want to get caught?" She started to cry. The soft, rehearsed kind I'd seen before, when she wanted to control a conversation. But it didn't move me. Not this time. "You made your choice, Emily. I'm just making mine now. Please," she whispered. "Let me inside. Just talk to me. I can explain everything." "No," I said. "You can't. Because nothing you say now will unsay what I heard. Nothing will erase the months you were building a life with another man while lying next to me every night." She reached for the doorknob again. "Don't do this. Please." I stared at her for a long moment, then backed away from the window and closed the curtain. She didn't knock again. She stood there for maybe 10 minutes before I heard her car start. I watched from the kitchen window as she backed out slowly, the boxes still sitting untouched on the porch. And just like that, she was gone. I didn't plan on confronting my mother right away. I thought I'd need a few days to process everything, to cool down, to figure out what the hell I even wanted to say. But the truth is, once the dust settled after I kicked Emily out, there was only one thing left burning in my chest, and it wasn't about her. It was about my mother. My mother, who stood in the same room as the woman who betrayed me, and didn't just listen, didn't just nod, she encouraged it, supported it, almost coached her through it, like my marriage was just an old coat to be taken off and tossed away. I drove over to her house 2 days later, not because I wanted to talk, but because I needed to. I needed her to see what she'd done, not in theory, not through passive-aggressive phone calls, but in person. She opened the door like nothing was wrong, smiled that same motherly smile I'd grown up with, the one that used to mean comfort, safety, home. And for a second, just one terrible second, I almost faltered. I almost smiled back. That's the power family has, isn't it? It pulls at your instincts, makes you want to forgive even when you shouldn't. But then I remembered her words. Maybe it's time you go live with the man who actually makes you happy. And the fire came right back. I walked past her without saying anything, into the living room, and sat down like I belonged there. She followed slowly, cautious now, sensing something was off. "What's going on?" she asked, setting down a folded dish towel. "Have you talked to Emily?" That was it. That was the spark. "I'm not here to talk about Emily," I said. My voice was steady, but it didn't feel like mine. "I'm here to talk about you. About how you stood in that room and listened to her talk about cheating on me, and instead of stopping her, instead of defending your own son, you told her to leave me." My mother didn't speak right away. She looked stunned, but not guilty, just surprised that I'd actually bring it up. "I didn't mean it like that," she said finally. "I was just trying to support her." She seemed so lost, so unhappy. "And you've been distant for a while. I thought maybe something was wrong between you two." "No," I snapped. "You knew something was wrong. You just decided that whatever Emily was feeling mattered more than what I would lose." Her expression twisted then, something between defensiveness and exasperation. "I was only trying to help. You've always been so self-contained, so quiet. I thought maybe Emily just needed something more than you could give." That hit harder than I expected. "So it's my fault now?" She shook her head. "That's not what I'm saying." "Then what are you saying, Mom?" "That because I wasn't loud or dramatic enough, because I didn't demand her attention every second of the day, she had the right to screw around behind my back? And you had the right to give her permission?" Her face changed then. Not soft, not motherly, just tired. "You don't understand how hard marriage is for a woman sometimes. We make compromises. We give up passion for stability. That's the trade." Maybe she just hit her limit. I stared at her like she was a stranger. "That wasn't your decision to make. That wasn't your marriage. That was mine. And you didn't just stay silent. You took her side. You handed her the knife and helped her aim it at my back." She started to cry, but I felt nothing. "I came here to say goodbye," I said. "You're not my mother anymore. You lost the title the second you chose her over me." "That's not fair," she whispered. "I raised you. I've always been there." "No," I said. "You were there. You just weren't with me." I stood up and walked toward the door. My father came out from the hallway then, face pale, eyes darting between us. He didn't say anything. He never does. I gave him a nod, but it felt like we both knew it meant nothing now. At the door, I turned one last time. "I hope it was worth it," I said quietly. "I hope whatever bond you thought you had with Emily is enough to fill the space I'm leaving behind." Then I left. No hug. No tears. Just the sound of the door closing behind me. I didn't expect to feel anything again for a long time. After everything that happened, with Emily, with my mother, with the life I thought I'd built, I assumed I'd be stuck in this kind of emotional no man's land for months. Maybe longer. The kind of place where you just go through the motions, where days blur together and nothing surprises you because nothing can. Not after the kind of betrayal that guts you from the inside out. But life has this strange way of showing up when you least expect it. Not with grand gestures or movie moments. Just subtle ones. Like a quiet knock on the door when you've already assumed no one's coming. Her name is Leah. We met at the most ordinary place possible, a hardware store. I was there on a Saturday morning, looking for a specific type of sandpaper for a refinishing project I'd finally picked back up. She was standing in the same aisle, holding a can of wood stain like she wasn't sure what to do with it. We ended up laughing about how neither of us knew what we were doing. She told me she was building a bookshelf. I told her I was restoring a table I should have thrown out 6 years ago. We ended up talking for almost half an hour in that aisle. It felt easy, natural, no pressure, no expectation. Just two people sharing a moment. We ran into each other again a week later, same store, completely unplanned. She smiled and said, "We should probably stop meeting like this before someone thinks we're loitering." I asked if she wanted to grab coffee. She said yes. I was nervous. It had been so long since I'd sat across from someone with no history, no weight pressing down on the conversation. But with Leah, it wasn't awkward. She didn't ask for my whole life story. She didn't dig. She just listened. And when I told her quietly, carefully, that I'd recently gone through a divorce, she didn't flinch. She just nodded and said, "I've been through one, too. Different reasons. Same ache." That moment, that simple acknowledgement, hit me harder than I expected. Not because it was some magical fix, but because it reminded me I wasn't the only one walking around with scars. We've been seeing each other now for a couple of months. Slowly. Intentionally. No rushing into anything. She knows I'm still healing. She's patient with that. When I told her about what happened, not all the graphic details, but enough, she didn't look at me with pity. She looked at me like a man who'd survived something. She comes over sometimes, usually on Sundays. We make breakfast, talk about music or books or whatever random thing comes up. She laughs with her whole body, like joy isn't something to be rationed. And I found myself laughing again too, in ways I forgot I could. We went for a drive last weekend, no destination, just chasing the sunset down back roads. Windows down, her bare feet on the dash, wind whipping through the car. She looked over at me and said, "You look peaceful." And for the first time in what felt like forever, I was. Not healed, not whole, but peaceful. I still have nights where I think about Emily, about how it ended, about my mother. There are still wounds, but they're starting to close. Not because I've buried the past, but because I've stopped letting it hold my present hostage. Leah's not a replacement. She's not a rebound. She's a reminder that even after something breaks you, even after you lose what you thought you'd have forever, life doesn't end. It just begins again somewhere else. With someone else. In a way you never saw coming. It's been almost a year now since everything fell apart. Since the night I overheard the woman I loved more than anyone tell my mother I wasn't enough. Since I changed the locks, packed her life into boxes, and shut the door on a version of myself I'll never return to. Since I looked into my mother's eyes and told her she was no longer family to me. Some days, it feels like it happened just yesterday. Others, it feels like a story that belongs to someone else, some man I barely recognize anymore. And maybe that's the truth. Maybe the version of me that existed before all this doesn't exist anymore. I'm not bitter. That might be hard to believe, considering how the story started. But I'm not. I'm not sitting in the wreckage waiting for someone to save me. I'm not waiting for apologies that won't come or chasing closure that doesn't exist. What I am doing is living. Differently. More cautiously, maybe. But also more intentionally. For a long time after the betrayal, I carried around this heaviness, not just from what Emily did, but from what it said about me. I kept wondering if I was blind, or weak, or just stupid. If maybe she was right. Maybe I wasn't exciting. Maybe I wasn't enough. Those questions took root in me like rot, and I let them grow. But with time, and space, and a lot of quiet evenings sitting with myself, I learned something I wish I'd known earlier. Someone else's betrayal does not define your worth. It doesn't matter how much they lie, how many excuses they give, or who cheers them on from the sidelines. They're the ones who failed. Not you. Emily made her choice. She wanted excitement, passion, chaos, something she thought she wasn't getting from me. And maybe she'll find it. Maybe she already has. That's not my concern anymore. I loved her fully, and she turned away from that. That's her loss. And my mother, well, that's a different kind of wound. You grow up thinking your family will be your foundation, your fallback when the world shakes you. You never expect that they'll be the ones pushing you closer to the edge. I've made peace with what she did, but peace doesn't mean reunion. It just means I'm not carrying the anger anymore. Leah is still in my life. We take it slow, and we're honest with each other, sometimes to a fault. We've had long talks about boundaries, fears, and what healing really looks like. She doesn't try to fix me, and I don't try to fix her. We just meet each other where we are. And that's more than enough. I found joy in things I used to overlook. Mornings where the sun cuts through the kitchen window just right. Long walks with music in my ears and no one else's schedule on my shoulders. Late-night drives with no destination, just movement. It sounds simple, but it feels profound now. I don't hate Emily. I don't even hate Aiden. I don't spend my days wishing them misery. But I do hope they come to understand the damage they caused. I hope they one day sit in a quiet room and feel the echo of the people they hurt. Not for vengeance, just for understanding. As for me, I'm still healing. Some days I still wake up with a heaviness I can't explain. Sometimes I catch myself bracing for a lie that isn't coming. But those moments are getting fewer, softer, easier to breathe through. I lost my wife. I lost my mother. But I found something else, myself. The version of me who isn't afraid to start over. Who doesn't apologize for being steady, or kind, or trusting. Who refuses to let betrayal harden his heart. If you're reading this and going through something similar, I'll say this. The hurt doesn't last forever. It lingers, yes. But it doesn't own you. Not unless you let it. Your life isn't over when someone leaves you. Sometimes, that's exactly when it begins.